my swim time. Gonna bust up your behind. This is my swim time. Gonna mess up your whole mind. This is my swim time. Gonna bust up your behind. This is my swim time. Gonna mess up your whole mind.
Welcome to Work the Left Side. I'm hyped to announce tonight's guest. It is the one and only Mr. Fraser Girvan. How are we doing, mate? You good?
I'm good. Even though you checked about my second name but mispronounced my first name.
Oh, so what was your surname? Was it your first name?
Fraser.
Fraser. Oh, Fraser. Sorry, dude. Fraser. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Mate, it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't pronounce something wrong at some point.
No problem.
It's not a good mindset, mate. We're lazy talkers. We just say it as so. We don't even pronounce H's half the time. So there we go. Dude, thank you so much for joining. Apologies from the get-go for that straight away.
No problem.
But yeah, are we doing good? You good?
Yes, I'm good.
Awesome. I mentioned it before I hit record. I'm just going to get straight to it because it's fresh in my mind. Just want to say kudos on the TNT appearance at the weekend. Another promotion ticked off, and an awesome performance from what I saw the reels from TNT and on your Instagram as well. How was it?
Thank you very much. It was a great experience. My brother had obviously worked with TNT in its very early years, so it was cool having a promotion like that in such a big scale, obviously with its connections over in America and whatnot through GCW, to be able to showcase myself on a show at that level. Got to meet a lot of very talented people, a lot of new names, bit of, classic wrestling networking, and it was also just fun. So I never wrestled in Liverpool before, never been in Liverpool before, so that was cool. Totally different crowd there than what I'm used to in Glasgow. Just a very overall enjoyable experience, and I hope to be back very soon.
Did you manage to get to see the sights, or was it literally turn up, work, leave again, or did you get there a few hours early? Did you do the normal generic Liverpool stuff, basically?
I got to see the best of Liverpool because I got to go out afterwards, which was an experience, definitely. I got there pretty early, so I got to walk through Liverpool before the show, see a bit of it. Obviously, got to meet some of the locals at the show. That was a lot of accents I wasn't ready for. And then getting to go out afterwards, getting to really see the people of Liverpool up close and personal was definitely enjoyable. And then I had the enjoyable experience making my way back to Glasgow because I had a show the next day.
It's not just around the corner.
Nope. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, just like, tell me you weren't driving. Did you at least manage to get a bit of kip in the car or something? Or
managed to get a decent sleep. Yeah, had to because I was knackered, to say the least.
Not surprised. But so obviously, you mentioned like the Liverpool crowd. I'm sure that's the thing as well. You're obviously coming from Scotland. Your accent is boss. I love the Scottish accent. But the Liverpool accent, I can just imagine just being like, looking at each other, be like, say that again. Having to repeat things sometimes 2 or 3 times, being like, no, didn't get you. No, didn't get you either. Just these really broad accents, just banging heads.
I think it's the same with like a lot of the more stronger accents in the UK. I feel like being Scottish sets you up pretty nicely to understand them all. Like a Rosetta Stone accents. You know what I mean? I can kind of pick up bits from everyone.
Nice. That was the Liverpool crowd then. You say it was kind of different, but I know that's one of the things I love about Scottish wrestling. I've always kind of been a massive mark for it. Is just the atmosphere. You guys up there freaking love the wrestling. Some of the most hardcore fans I've ever met, seen, experienced. Is the Scottish crowd. So you say like, working TNT, the Liverpool crowd is different, but I know those guys are just as passionate about it as well. I mean, that must have been a similar.
Very much so, very passionate. I feel like the the crowds in Scotland and specifically Glasgow are so accustomed to seeing specific wrestlers and a specific style of wrestling there that when you go down, and it's weird because England, as much as I'm joking about the drive, it's not that far away, but I feel like the crowds appreciate a totally different aspect of wrestling. Whereas in Scotland, it's more about your characters and the people that are being portrayed. It's more the actual wrestling itself. I feel that they react to when you go down south. Just from my personal perspective, obviously, other people might have their own opinions on it, but that's just from what I've seen. So that's what I mean by it being just a different, being able to read the crowd a bit differently, being able to like how they react to what you're doing. Just it was a nice difference. It wasn't bad. It was just different.
Different. Like I say, it's just something else for you to sink your teeth into, kind of thing. It's a new experience, something for you to take away from it and be like, oh, okay. That works there. I wonder if I can get to work somewhere else, kind of thing. Because I'm on about TNT. The Liverpool fans. We'll do all the generic stuff, as of when we get to it, kind of thing. I'm just kind of, obviously, I said before camera, I got to meet you and see you, wrestle in person at True Grit,
Yes.
which obviously is Yorkshire based. So from that side to Yorkshire, and I've got to say, man, not just because we sponsor them, but True Grit's my local promotion. I love True Grit. The Left Bank is an amazing venue, and I think the crowd are awesome. And that show was freaking unreal. The electricity. How did you find, True Grit? And the Yorkshire people, we'll give the Yorkshire people a shout out as well as the Scousers.
Definitely, you took the words out of my mouth. The venue was amazing. I couldn't believe that we were wrestling in an old church. As a good Catholic boy when I was younger, that felt a bit sacrilegious, but it was very cool. Big venue, good crowd, good, like you say, electric crowd. I would love to be back, of course. I thought the whole presentation, the way that the show was handled, from top to bottom, and of course, like you say, the show was great. Sitting backstage and eventually moving my way back to the merch table and listening to the crowd reacting to everything. I think True Grit have got a really nice foothold on that area. They seem to have a very loyal fan base. I saw the way that the fans were interacting with the wrestlers and how it feels like a right good community they've got going on there. And like I say, I'd love to be back.
Oh, fingers crossed, dude. Like I say, I have no power through sponsorship, but just I can keep name dropping. I can just I'll just keep sort of randomly talking like, yeah. Book this man, please book this man. And
good idea.
We'll put it into the universe and we'll will it to happen. That's what we'll do.
Manifest it.
But no, I'm glad you enjoy True Grit, dude. It's always nice to know that when people, especially like you say, when you go to work at new promotions, it kind of something clicks, you have a good time, you enjoy the energy, and you come away with it with like just happy thoughts, kind of thing. Because I can only presume, sometimes there's nightmare stories. Hopefully not many, but there's always that chance you'll go somewhere and it'll just be like, just didn't feel it, or I didn't enjoy it. But it's nice to know True Grit wasn't one of those.
Yeah, definitely not.
So let's tick the generic box. I mentioned it before. Again, I've massive shout out to the Scottish Wrestling Network. Obviously, I kind of watched their episode of this. I was sort of tempted just to be like, call it off, and I'm just going to put a link into that episode onto this episode and be like, you know what, just go watch that one. It's awesome. But yeah, the generic question. What got you into wrestling? I know it was a video game when you was 8 years old. Planted the seeds, basically.
Yes, SmackDown versus Raw 2008. The more that I repeat that story, the more I realise how much of a geek it makes me sound, but that's just the truth of the matter. I was 8 years old and rented it from Blockbuster, such my mum worked at the time, and it was instantaneous. Just got enthralled by the entirety of wrestling because I had no concept of it before, and then to be just introduced to this world of like the land of the giants. And of course, my brother then getting into it himself, started wrestling. That kept me in the loop, at the very least, at all times. And again, like you say, you're going to link to the Scottish Wrestling Network where I go into real detail about all this. But throughout my life, it's been such a consistent thing. The real start point was SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. Yes.
And then also said, yeah, we won't go into detail because I don't want to just carbon copy that episode kind of thing. But you basically started, doing a few things around when you was 11. No, too much effort, like you sort of said. 11-year-old, no, not happening. 16. I do want to just, in case anybody hasn't watched that episode or doesn't find time to go watch that episode, the thing that led into from 16 to 19 was the whole roller coaster freaking thing, dude. Jeez, that is
Yeah.
I've got it up because it's purely one of those stories that, I could tell somebody about it and they'd be like, no, mate, you're lying. I'm like, right, here's the man himself. That was crazy.
So, for the sake of those who don't know, I was in a roller coaster crash at 16 years old. I didn't lose any limbs. I broke my arm. I tore my quad. Severe mental trauma. And then at 18, I got a big compensation payout for it that I spent in 4 months. That's the footnotes version of it. There's obviously the details of like the months of recovery and the losing a summer, my teenage years, and all this stuff we could get into. But yeah, that is the the short version.
As soon as you mentioned Ted quad, though, I'm just, like you said before, that is such a wrestling fucking injury.
I know.
It's like before you got
As if
into
I was born to be a wrestler.
I'll say why later down the line, but I compared you to Daniel Bryan, before we hit record, and really compare you to Kevin Nash purely for that reason as well. You're like a hybrid of
Kevin
Daniel
Nash.
Bryan and Kevin Nash.
Two guys that made a lot of money in wrestling, so I'm happy to be compared to them.
But yeah, dude, obviously, thankfully, you healed up. And then obviously, yeah, you kind of, so at 19, this was the time, this was the moment where you're like, right, I'm getting into it. We're knuckling down, being serious. What school sort of did you end up going to, and why that one?
At 19, I actually went back for about 2 months. It wasn't until I was 22 when I started back again that I really stuck at it. And it was every time I went back to training, I went to the Source Wrestling School, which is unfortunately no longer there, but that was where my brother started as well. It was based, originally it was in Linwood, then it moved to Pollockshaw's. These are all places that mean nothing, but this is within the Glasgow area and just outside. But it was ran originally by Big Damo, who was in WWE's Killian Dane. Got taken over and changed hands a bunch of times, but eventually it was ran by a guy, David Devlin. But it was about 22 is when I went back, and it was a real kind of make or break moment where I thought, if I don't stick at it now, because throughout my entire life I'd told myself I was going to get into wrestling. I knew at some point I was going to, I just didn't know when. And at 22 I had a real moment of self-reflection going, if I don't do it now, I'll probably never stick at it. And fortunately I have. And here I am 2 years later, reaping the benefits of it.
Dude, definitely. I mean, like I sort of said, we touched upon it before, off camera kind of thing. I was checking the dates and everything previously, and obviously, Cage Match has got your first match on there being like June last year, June 23. So 10 months ago. After seeing you work, after seeing like matches on YouTube and on social medias and stuff, I was legitimately like, I scrolled down to the bottom and I was looking for like page 2, page 3, and I was like, oh, there's no way this dude's just been doing this for like 10 months, a year, 10 months, 16 months. I was legitimately like, no, mate, I ain't buying it. So, wow.
Yeah, it's that real imposter syndrome when people give me compliments like that, because I don't see it, but like I get it. It is strange to see what I've done in the very short amount of time that I've been around. I think the added benefit is the fact that I've like been so surrounded in wrestling my entire life that I don't know if it's just through. I don't know. In my head, it's just being around wrestling so much. I've kind of taken things in over the years that, unfortunately, for someone who's never been involved in wrestling and wouldn't know. You know what I mean? I've seen my brother make all these mistakes that I know I don't want to make. I've got him that I've been learning off of since he got into it in 2008. You know what I mean? So I think I'd like to think that's got a factor in it, but I'm also just really good. I think that's the ultimate thing.
Yes, there we go. Say it as it is, dude. You know, I'm never gonna say otherwise. But yeah, like I said, it's probably, you know, even subconsciously, you know, you've always kind of been around it, or you've been around people that are involved. I think just it's kind of soaked in without you realizing it sometimes. And like sort of said, you've been able to see other people, mistakes they've made, or things that you may have done differently. So you didn't have to do it incorrectly first. You just knew straight away, like, right, this is how I'm doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, well, again, you know, hitting the ground running. I mentioned it, you know, 5 months, November last year. You were up for a title. You won a title. That's 5 months
Yes.
into your journey, dude. You know, that's huge.
I think that was if I'm right, that was my 5th or 6th match. And that was a real kind of full circle moment for me, because that was a title that my brother originally, and it was in the first ever match for. So that was quite cool being able to have that moment, because he never won it. So for me to be able to win it was a nice full circle moment. Never mind the fact I lost it 5 minutes later, but hey, let's not get into the details.
The pictures out there of you with the belt. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
And dude, again, you know, I've made the comparison before. You know, that's 4 minutes and 52 seconds longer than the Daniel Bryan match at WrestleMania that he had the belt for. So
exactly, like I said,
he lost the belt in 8 seconds, mate. He lost the belt in 8 seconds. You held it for 5 minutes. That's a lifetime.
So I think what you're saying is I'm actually better than Daniel Bryan.
I wouldn't want to anger the IWC out there, you know, but if that's how you want to, I'm not gonna counter that and say it's not true. So, but then after that as well, you know, looking through, you know, it's not just that. I know there's a lot of people in the match, but you were in a title contenders match for the ICW title, you know, just after that as well.
Yeah, in February.
Is very early on.
In February, I was in the Square Goal, which was again getting to. I think that was at that point maybe I'd only been wrestling for about 8 months. Getting to wrestle, and I wrestled twice that night as well in the Garage, which is, for my money, the most iconic wrestling venue in the UK. There's, I don't know the actual facts and figures, but I'd put some serious money on it that has held more wrestling events than any other venue in the country. And some of the, and not just in British wrestling, and wrestling as a whole, have wrestled in that building. So getting to wrestle there twice in one night, one of them being in the Square Goal, get to share the ring with Kenny Williams, like, it was a pretty surreal moment for me. You know what I mean? And like going forwards, every time I've gotten to wrestle in the Garage now more than once, and every time it's that, I don't know. It's still not like I'm still not over it. If you know what I mean, I still appreciate how cool I think it is that I'm getting to do. And I feel that's the case. Anytime I get to wrestle, never mind the venue, but that's a nice wee added layer to it.
That's it, mate. Yeah, you know, so you get to do what you want to do, what you're good at, but you get to do it there. Like I said, as not, you know, as an Englishman kind of thing, I'm fully aware of ICW. You know, the awesomeness of the Garage. You know, that was one of for a long time. You know, ICW is one of my favorite promotions. I've still got DVDs. You know, I've still got It's Coming Up, Millhouse, all those kind of ones. You know,
That's cool.
still one of my favorite ever names for a show. Love that name. But yeah, it's just I can't even imagine, you know, to be from around that area, to getting into wrestling, just to be able to walk in. You know, we mentioned True Grit earlier being an old church. I mean, the Garage might as well just be a holy place.
As far as British wrestling is concerned, definitely.
Yeah. So you still getting the butterflies when you walk in there, then.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Butterflies.
Yeah, it's just like, and obviously getting to work again. I'm not to oversell the importance of ICW, but they're a huge promotion, and you getting to work there so quickly. Again, it shows how much momentum you had from day one.
Definitely. Like I say, it's one thing wrestling in the garage, but see, being it was like getting to wrestle in ICW alone was cool in itself, because to me, I was a fan of ICW growing up. I remember being there at all the Hydro shows. I was front row for the second one. Like, it's not lost on me at all how cool it is to be in the ICW sphere. It's, again, like you say, I have this real moment every time that I wrestle where I feel like, how is this happening? I would have 5 years ago been in the front row of these shows, and now I'm on them. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how this happens.
Karma, I don't know, just the destiny. Yeah. Well, there's many words for it, I'm sure. But so I mean, talking as you sort of say, growing up. So we mentioned, kind of the video game is what kind of planted the seeds. But obviously, living where you live, obviously having an older brother who got into wrestling. When did you start becoming aware then of what was around you? The fact, like you had ICW so close, kind of thing. When did you start going to live shows as a fan?
So I remember my brother started training, and pretty quickly we started going to the shows associated with the school. With him only being about 13, 14, and me obviously being about 8 years old, it was still very cool to us. Like, we were kids still. But as I got older, there was a real time where it was like ICW was the main place my brother was working, but I was too young to actually go to the show, so I had to always watch it online. But by the time that I was old enough, that was when things really started to kick off for him. That was when I started getting to go, like I say, I was front row at shows. But I went through a right period when I was from about 14 to about 16, where I stopped involving myself in wrestling because I magically found out that alcohol and girls existed. Wrestling kind of took a backseat in my life at that point. But as like I say, after the roller coaster crash, I had a bit of self-reflect, and I realised that it's more to life than just going out every weekend.
Only a little bit, but
only a wee bit.
So, but yeah, so I mean, obviously, then, yeah, when you're old enough to start going, you get to experience, because I heard it mentioned before, obviously BT Gunn was a massive influence.
Yes.
I was a massive, I've seen BT wrestle numerous times. He came down he's worked Yorkshire, a few places, seen him there. I remember the original Knack. I'm a fan of the new Knack, but I remember the old school Knack as well, kind of thing. And BT Gunn was just unreal. I did some artwork for him years ago, kind of thing. I just remember it being boss. Yeah, obviously, if you've got to look up to anyone in wrestling, in Scottish wrestling, BT's one of the top guys.
Yeah, he's definitely a big one. Like I say, going to shows when I was so young, and one of the wrestlers I was the biggest fan of was Jeff Hardy. And back in the day, BT Gunn was the Scottish Jeff Hardy, if you want to call it that. So he was my automatic favourite at 8 years old. And like you say, now that I have a appreciation of wrestling, and now that I'm in the scene, I can appreciate him for his talents and how much of like an unintentional influence he's had on certain things that I do. But the same goes for so many people in the scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd be amiss as well. Obviously, I didn't take a chance to chat. Obviously, Lionheart. I know he was a massive influence on many people.
Yes.
Massive mark. I love seeing him. I used to see him regularly at PCW in Preston all the time, kind of thing. So I got to experience the awesomeness of Lionheart. Yeah, dude, it's just the whole scene up there is just. Like I say, you guys just churn out some freaking amazing talent. I just can't even imagine, being involved in that kind of thing, just being part of the journey, you know, being on the same ladder as all these people. I think, yeah, what I'm trying to say is wrestling in Scotland is fucking awesome, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's I feel like a lot of people forget this, is that when you really look at like the people who've went on to bigger ventures outside of Britain, it's the people from Scotland are the ones who went to, it's like, it's your Joe Coffeys, it's your Mark Coffeys, Wolfgang, Noam Dar, Drew McIntyre, and then you think of like Piper Niven, Alba Fire, like, these names. You go and you go, oh, this is just the ICW roster from like 6 years ago. Yeah, I mean 6, 7, 8 years ago. And it's funny to me because I feel like there's a right perception that UK wrestling or British wrestling is mainly in England, which I just don't think is the case, because so much happens up in Scotland that like I feel flies under the radar. Because it's like everyone knows ICW, but there's so many other promotions that like I feel don't get the same, I don't know,
Respect.
for years. Respect to a certain degree. Yeah. So much talent up here that just doesn't get the same fair shake because they're not from England, I guess.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's the thing. Yeah, I totally agree. You can't argue the facts. Like you say, the names you've just reeled off, some of the biggest stars to come out of Britain have come out of Scotland and not from England, kind of thing. So it's just, that's what I mean. That's why I always love watching stuff that you guys do up there, and just say it's the passion. You know, I mean, I just think Scotland and Newcastle for me, and very much neighbouring. You always get a lot of Scottish talent in Newcastle and vice versa, kind of thing. I think you guys kind of have obviously got a great working relationship, and obviously it helps you close to each other. But to me, they're the two epicenters of just the fan base. I might be smirching in fans anywhere else, but I think anyone can hold their hands up and just be like, yeah. Scottish and Newcastle wrestling are where people want to be, kind of thing, or should look to be to improve.
Definitely, I would agree.
So, Newcastle, I was looking through things. Is that obviously somewhere, you know, on your list of places?
Newcastle is 100% on my radar because I know how much, like you say, epicenter for like. There's so many promotions in Newcastle, and so much great talents came out of Newcastle. Fortunately, ICW are running Newcastle on the road to Fear and Loathing. Got backcountry in the Student Union on November 3rd. I want to say, might be November 2nd, might be November 3rd. Might be getting my dates mixed up. However, I'm very excited because I know I've heard someone in Newcastle and who's all worked there and what it's like to be in Newcastle. I've only ever been in Newcastle once or twice in my life, so excited to go in a wrestling context, and again getting to work in front of a different crowd than what we're used to up north.
Yeah, you just got to take the time though to soak it all in as well, kind of thing. You know, enjoy the journey.
Definitely.
So, I do want to sort of touch on, you know, what kind of Planet of the Seas got you in. TNA, obviously, I was in the same boat as you. I didn't have access to like Sky and stuff like that, so I was like a diehard TNA fan back in the day. I know you kind of like credited TNA 2006 to about 2009. There's been like, you know, obviously a peak period, and there was just some good stuff going on there.
Definitely. I feel like that was what really introduced me to wrestling outside of like what WWE was presenting at the time. Especially because I didn't really have access to much else at that point. So I was kind of forced into watching good wrestling, God forbid. But through that, it introduced me to names. So I was like, all right, I'll look this person up, and then, oh, here's their YouTube, a YouTube match of theirs from Ring of Honor 5 years ago, and oh, what's this company, Ring of Honor? What's CZW? What's Shikara? What are all these and then Japanese wrestling exists. I didn't know that was a thing. And it really, watching TNA at that time, it was such a pivotal time for me to like really discover wrestling as a whole. And being able to do that at such a young age, I think is, like we were talking about before, engrossed myself in wrestling so much from a young age. I've taken in so much. I think it's by sheer proxy. You know what I mean? It's just been watching this stuff from like my developmental years. It's like worms in my brain. I can't get out. You know what I mean?
And that's, let's say, it was all about, because again, I'm massive. Any chance I get to talk about TNA, sometimes I'm going to jump on it, kind of thing. Because that was it before Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Chris Daniels, Petey Williams, Amazing Reds. That X Division was running wild at that point. It was more about the X Division than it was the main event sort of scene.
Yeah.
And obviously Kurt Angle turns up, and it's like, okay, well, it's the main event as well now.
Yeah.
Around about that time, you had the obviously Samoa Joe Kurt Angle match. And mate, yeah, if anything's gonna get you hooked on wrestling, it's that kind of a match. It's those kind of people.
It's that kind of intensity that Kurt Angle fresh off of WWE, Samoa Joe having a point to prove. It's that kind of like intensity and like the elements of the real life they get involved that it made you really believe in what they were doing. I feel like that's again something that I've tried to implement myself. Two guys that I'm a massive fan of. Yeah, I think that's such a. If you really want to understand the inner working of my brain and how I look at wrestling, watch that period of TNA.
That's why I brought it up as well, because obviously, again, it's still fresh. I've watched it a few times. Just your introduction at TNT at the weekend kind of thing. When you first get in that ring and you just like banging heads, knocking people over, it's like you can't doubt the intensity. It just made me think of that match kind of thing as well. It's just that sort of genuine, like, oh shit, this guy's gonna totally mess me up now.
It's like I feel like you need to be able to make people believe how intense you are, because if you're coming in and you're not coming in like a house of fire like that, especially in a situation of a rumble, no one's expecting you to win. You know what I mean? I think no one could have looked at my performance then and thought this guy might not win this.
That's it. You showed up, you looked to the business, and straight away it was like, okay, here we go. Keep your eyes on him, kind of thing. And then but if and when in any rumble you turn up like that, you get eliminated. It means something. You get the fans. Interested in what you're going to do next.
Yeah, I'd like to believe so myself as well.
But definitely, like I say, good. Sorry, man, I'm just finding basically, I'm saying your TNT debut just reminded me of Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. So there you go.
Well, I'm honoured.
It's just Kevin Nash, Daniel Bryan, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe. There we go.
Again, all people have made lots of money, so keep them coming.
Keep it going, right? I'll get to I don't know. Well, I've got to bring this up. I just like the reference you made beforehand about being straight edge until you got to about 15 and then realised, no, I'm not straight edge. Because obviously, CM Punk back in the day, ECW, WWE, ECW, CM Punk, all that kind of sort of stuff. So again, man, it's just a very good time. It was a great time to get to wrestling. I'm just reading off these names now, thinking about it. I'm just like, I was older at that point, so I was kind of like, I got a bit tainted with it. TNA kind of pulled me back in, but WWE at that point, I kind of lost interest with. So
I can only appreciate like having, if you had lived through the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression, or even before that, I can appreciate that time period in wrestling would turn you off. And I know a lot of people who it did, and it was only the more current product is what brought them back in. But the problem is that's like, because that was my formative years when I got into wrestling, I still hold a soft spot for that kind of period. So I kind of look at the rose-tinted glasses a wee bit more than your average viewer would.
No, dude, I'm never going to argue that, because in fairness, people of different ages, they've got their era in wrestling, whether it's the Attitude, Ruthless, PG, reality, whichever one it is, and they're always going to look at it, like you say, with those rose-tinted glasses. If you went back and look at the Attitude Era now, mate, it kind of sucked. It was huge. It was like, the highest wrestling's ever been. But dude, yeah, you go back, you're just like, hey, some of this is awful. You know, some of the matches were like long, a minute long kind of thing. It was just like, yeah.
You watch old TV wrestling, especially from the Attitude Era, and it was pretty rough.
So basically what we're saying is whatever your era is, it's perfectly fine to be biased and enjoy it because it means something to you. Doesn't mean it's
Wrestling is such a subjective art form. You know what I mean? I'm never going to be one of these people who thinks that one thing's better than the other, or I don't agree with you because you like this certain style of wrestling, or you like this certain company, or you like this certain person. Because at the end of the day, I think that's the real beauty of wrestling is that it doesn't matter what you like. There's something for you in every promotion, or in every country, or in every whatever. You know what I mean?
definitely. Oh, I fully agree, mate. I'm of that mindset. I hate the tribalness of just use like the mainstream as an example. You know, people who watch WWE bad mouthing AEW and vice versa. You can't like both. You got to like one or the other. It's like, no, wrestling is wrestling. You know, there's great wrestling everywhere. You just got to pick what you want to watch and what you don't want to watch. And I prefer to talk about the stuff I want to watch as opposed to people who talk about stuff they don't want to watch. Like, if you don't want to watch, don't watch it. You know, you don't have to talk about it.
That's the crazy bit to me is it's these people who feel like they need to, and I get it, it's a human thing to do, but it's just this incessant need to talk about the negatives instead of focusing on the positives when there is so many positives. I mean, wrestling's at its healthiest it's ever been. You know what I mean? They're making across the board more money than they've ever made in the mainstream. So can anyone look at another thing to me? There's more wrestling to watch than ever. How is that a bad thing? You know what I mean? I just don't get it.
It's like one match the promotion puts on. That's one match you wouldn't have seen if that promotion didn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. So tag team wrestling. Obviously, you know, you and your brother have teamed up on numerous occasions.
Yes.
I like it when people work singles. I like when people work tag as well because I'm always curious to me they're just totally obviously, you know, it's wrestling, but I can only presume the mindset's different, you know, in a singles match to a tag team match. You know, you've got more things you can do in a tag team. I'm always curious as to what people sort of prefer or if they have a preference.
So for me, I enjoy both. And I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's really like I promise you, I'm trying my hardest to explain this without it sounding like one. To me, I can approach a singles match and think, right, what am I going to do? Like what is my performance going to be like? How am I going to present myself? Whereas when I'm going with my brother, I'm tagging with Lewis, it means that, right, cool, I'm halving my load as far as like what I'm doing, but then it's also like, right, how do we present ourselves? Now it's like, right, if I'm doing this, what's he doing? If he's doing that, what am I doing? And that's why, again, like I'm saying, with wrestling being such like a open book, it's like there's so many options of what you can do. I feel like it's the added wee crinkle to the storytelling of being in a tag match or being in a singles match. It's like, here's how I would win a fight if I was by myself. Here's how I'd win a fight if I came team-handed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that again makes perfect sense. Like, I won't have taken it as a cop-out answer because it sort of said there's pros and there's cons to both. So, you know, I mean, it's like when you're in singles, like say, all you've got to worry about is what you're doing and what other person's doing. And in tag match, there's 4 people to think about. You know, there's different things you can do. You know, there's the double team moments. There's if you work in face, you know, who gets the hot tag, who gets to have that sudden burst. If you're the bad guy, I mean, just standing on the ring and just riling up the audience. You know, do you spend 5 minutes?
Well,
crowd?
For me as well, it's like I know in a singles match I'm showcasing Fraser Girvan as myself. I'm getting to be 100% of what the audience is watching. And I know in a tag match, then it's 50-50 of me and Lewis. But that's almost in itself better. Because I know being on screen with Lewis means more than anything what I'd be doing by myself. To the point where hopefully I do enough of that so that when I'm by myself, that means just as much. If that makes sense.
Yeah. How do you find it? I mean, is there obviously, people, anybody who's got brothers will tell you it's either one thing or another thing. They're either really competitive or, obviously they still love each other, but, they're always trying to one up each other, or, they're just banging heads. Being in a tag team, with your brother, again, as a fan, I'd be like, straight away, that's cool. It's like the Hardy Boys, it's like, just thinking like, for other teams, I'm going to say Edge and Christian, but obviously, kayfabe.
Technically brothers.
Kane, Undertaker and Kane, brothers of destruction. Does it flow quite easily, or do you guys kind of butt heads sometimes, or is it plain sailing all the way?
So, me and my brother have the added benefit that we've always got on, where a lot of brothers wouldn't have got on for a long time. They fought when they were younger. Me and Lewis never had that problem. The problem we'll run into now with Lewis being the experienced hand is that I'm the more the wild card, and a bit more wily, and I'm a bit more just chomping at the bit to get at it, whereas it's Lewis needs to be the hand on my shoulder to kind of tell me, maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe don't go through this table. Maybe don't jump off this thing. You know what I mean?
But you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
No, slow it down. Like sometimes more, make it mean something. Just.
Yes.
But that's awesome as well, though, because that's kind of cool. Because that works. Because especially in a team, you've always kind of got the, let's say, the clear head, and then you've always kind of got the. I'm thinking of. I'm just again going to show my age. I'm just thinking of like the Steiners. I can just imagine, Scott being like, the even though he's the younger, it's the other way around age-wise. But Scott was always kind of like the level-headed one, and Rick was just, yeah, let's go, let's fucking have him. And just
exactly.
So you go, Steiners. That's my fifth comparison for you. So yeah,
keep them coming.
Just I don't know, man. Just imagine like the whole tag team thing. Plus as well, though, you've got that belt. If he tries to tell you what to do, you can be like, who is this champ? I won the belt. You listen to me.
Maybe that's something that needs to be said. I'll bring it up at our team meeting.
But obviously, again, when looking through Cage Match, as always, you guys haven't just been tag team partners. You've been across the ring from each other as well. I guess there's no better way to kind of get your reps in, to kind of learn things by actually doing than getting in there with the person you trust the most.
Well, for me, it's I've wrestled my brother twice now, and both times they've both been very fitting times. I had my debut against him, so that was me getting my introduction to wrestling. And I learned so much there, but so much I was learning still how to become a wrestler at that point. First time being in front of a paying crowd. But then I wrestled him only the other month there. And having now done so much in wrestling, like you say, in such a short amount of time, I was really being able to walk into it and go and, right, here's what I've learned in the time that we've not been across the ring from each other. And I felt like we both put on a really good showcase of how far along I've came, but while still solidifying the fact that he's by far and away one of, if not the best wrestler in the country. Like, that's not a biased opinion. I just think that's fact at this point.
But I think it'd be cool if you kind of did that, like, once a year, like every year. If you two guys just like say it was your first match, you had one this year, probably I think it was 14, 15 months after your debut kind of thing, so just over the 1 year mark. And then if you did the same thing like next year, you could, like, if you just watched the progression of the matches as you went along.
I think that would be a great idea. I would love to do it. I would love to wrestle my brother every day of the week if I could, because like I say, he's a guy who can make wrestling look like the easiest thing in the world when wrestling is the hardest thing in the world. You know what I mean? He makes it look so effortless, and he's got such a good brain for wrestling. I could go on and on. We could spend the full hour talking about my brother, but that would only inflate his ego. So let's not do that.
And I'm here to inflate yours, dude. So yes, let's. But
exactly.
I'm always interested, like say the journey. Again, I'm still flabbergasted. You're only like 16 months, into it, kind of thing. But for me, one of the hardest things as a fan, one of the hardest things I presume to kind of pick up is obviously once you get into wrestling, like I say, you've been soaking it in for years subconsciously. You're learning the fundamentals. You're learning the routine kind of thing. It's the psychology that amazes me. Somebody's ability, somebody who just gets the psychology, who can tell a story, who can get the character over and just get the fans, just there kind of thing.
Yeah. If you're like I say, not to go back to it, but that's something that I feel like that's one of the main things I picked up from Lewis is his ability to do that. I feel like I'm not to toot my own horn. I feel like I'm pretty good at that too.
Yeah,
I feel like it's having an understanding of that before ever stepping foot in a ring is another thing that's helped me a lot. Is knowing like what crowds react to and what people actually enjoy. Not going into wrestling for yourself, going in thinking what's best for the crowd. Because at the end of the day, if you're going into it for yourself, you're going into it for the wrong reasons. That's not the point of wrestling. That's not the reason why people put on shows. That's not the reason why you should become a wrestler. There's a part of it, and if you don't have that, you won't get anywhere. But you need to always step back and be able to understand that the most important thing is you're putting on a live performance for the sake of entertainment. And if you're trying to do it for any other reason, I don't know what to tell you.
It's not gonna. It might work, but it won't come across 100% kind of thing. It's not going to feel. The fans aren't going to connect to it as much. I would say, as I say, from this side of the table, that's how I would perceive it, kind of thing. I appreciate it when, like I say, the whole show is there and people are there just to. Especially nowadays, I think British wrestling is everybody's kind of supporting everybody a lot more. Everybody's kind of elevating of everybody. Not everybody. I know there's still, we'll say 87% of the British wrestling scene is a lot more positive now than it was, 6-7 years ago, kind of thing. Everybody kind of seems really supportive, and networking must just be a lot easier. That's where I'm going.
Well, I think it's because for a long time, so many people, and there is still a lot of this of people putting up their walls. However, I think from the outside looking in now, you are starting to see a lot of people working together. You're starting to see a lot of people who are willing to work together. And I think it's because we know deep down, although egos may be at play, and although people's personal opinions and so-called morals might get in the road, ultimately the way to get back to where we were 6-7 years ago is by working together. It's because that's how we got there in the first place. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that it's getting to that stage again. I feel like we're right on the cusp of something special. Like how it was like 2016, 2017, where, ICW was doing the Hydro, Progress ran Wembley, WWE were starting whole promotions just because they were shitting themselves that the British scene was taking off.
That's it. I mean, again, that's always around the corner. There's always at some point, we could lose a selection of talent. But I think, the way British wrestling is now, if that did, say, if like WWE UK popped back up again, and, they came in and took a handful of people or, 20, 30 people, I think there's so much talent out there that the people who had been kind of hovering just below the main event would quite easily jump up and just be like, yeah, here we are, look at us now.
I think it's because, like I say, the boom in British wrestling happened so quickly that there was no thought of the future. There was no thought of, oh fuck, what if WWE come knocking? Because that wasn't even in people's minds. So I felt like, and this was at no fault of any promoter or any one person or any group of people. People in promotions put so much stock into certain performers that when WWE came knocking and they did skim that top layer of talent, there was a real moment of, oh fuck. Whereas now, I feel like knowing what can happen, the scene as a whole is put more stock into going, right, we have a main event scene, but developing our undercard. That's why you're seeing so much more of this. Like, I think a lot of the positivity comes from the fact that we know we need to work together. We know we need to bring up the younger guys like myself. I'm saying this like I'm I'm a vet. I know I'm not, but like you say, I've done so much in such a short amount of time. This wouldn't have happened. I know for a fact this wouldn't have happened 6-7 years ago because of how competitive British wrestling was.
So
Whereas there is a competitiveness, it's just not as it's not as like I don't know what
self-serving.
the word for it is, but
It's not self-serving. It's not as protecting your own kind of thing. I don't know. Does that sound about
yeah,
right?
that sounds about right. I know what you mean. I think we're aiming around the same kind of point. It's like the willingness to let other people take the mantle.
That's it. Again, just as a fan, obviously, you guys benefit from it, from, people you get to work with, promotions you get to go around, and stuff like that. But as a fan, I've always sort of say, you're probably never 15 minutes away from a wrestling show. You're probably never 30 minutes away from a good wrestling show. I
Yeah,
think it's just that much choice out there now. And as speaking for the fans, it's fucking awesome. I'm loving every second of it.
definitely. Being a wrestler right now is it's such an exciting time because you never know what's around the corner. You never know what promotion is going to pop up or what this promotion is going to be doing next week or next month. Like you're seeing OTT running 2,000-seater venues. You know what I mean? OTT again, not to just big them up, bringing in guys like JD McDonough and Finn Balor. That's something that like wasn't even happening when British wrestling was at its biggest. You know what I mean? But yeah, the close at home, ICW having such big talent coming in, guys like Damo, guys like Rampage, having Kenny Williams as the ICW champion. You know what I mean? All these, it is such an exciting time. I know people like to shit on where we are right now, but I don't see it.
No,
I think wrestling's at its healthiest right now.
yeah, dude, I've said this numerous times. I've had people go at me, if you've been like, yeah, man. I'm like, no, I think at the minute it's the strongest it's ever been from top to bottom. Just for variety. I think that's why, like you sort of said, people aren't focusing just on the main events anymore. They're focusing on the entire show. They're making sure that all of the roster can level up at any point if needed, kind of thing. So they've got
Definitely.
a show stacked full of potential main eventers as opposed to just 2 or 3. So for me, that means British wrestling. Yeah, it's leveled up numerous times. So
Definitely.
Kenny Williams. So obviously, I was gushing over BT Gunn before, and the original Knack. Kenny's obviously another name that is iconic up north for me, kind of thing. From that time period.
Definitely. Another big name who, like you say, got scooped up by NXT, but we're very lucky to have him back in ICW. He's a guy who he doesn't he's selective of where he works because he knows that brings in more people. Because if they want to see Kenny Williams, they're going to see him at ICW. Now with him being the champion, I mean, if you're looking for talent, if you're looking for someone who's got star power, someone who's bringing a professional side to wrestling, look no further. You know what I mean?
Kenny and Stevie back in the day, I remember some of theirs, but I always liked. Again, I used to like numerous pieces of artwork back in the day. I always look for like visual things. If somebody comes out and they just visually pop, the whole Kenny's Back to the Future kind of thing, just
Yeah,
straight away.
very different from what he's doing now. But yeah, that's what I mean. There was like talking at the start about how the Scottish side or the Scottish fans are more accustomed to characters. There you go. There's a guy who's a fantastic wrestler, but you're saying there it's like you remember him being in the Back to the Future, like all the visuals and the aesthetic of that. Which, in my opinion, that's not a bad thing. That's good that you remember that. That shows that despite his wrestling, you remember this guy because of how he looked. You know, I mean, you look at you can look at any show in Scotland and you look at the guys who are on it. Everyone's got such a distinct look. Everyone's got such a distinct aesthetic and character, and it's not like you're ever going to go. This is a show full of like creator wrestler 1 through 10. Everyone's got their own thing going on.
That's it. But yeah, no, I wasn't like, so I know what he's doing now, kind of thing. But also from a visual point of view, that's what got my attention. That's what kind of pulled me in and made me a fan, along the way, kind of thing. And it was just like Joe Coffey's like the Iron Man face, when he used to do like the face, dude.
That's what I mean. Like, if you look at ICW at that point, and you look at who was like the top stars, you got guys like you say, like Kenny Williams had the Back to the Future look. He had the Iron Man look from Joe Coffey. Yeah, Jack Jester had the whole dominatrix thing going on. You had guys like Damo who were these monsters among men. You look at an ICW point, drew you in. Yeah, you had guys like Grado, for example, who didn't look like the typical wrestler, but God, did he have that crowd like wanting him to do well. I think you can never look at a show, especially back then, but even now, and go, oh, that I've seen this before.
No. At no point did I ever watch not just ICW, but like you say, the promotions up there, what they've done over the years. Like you sort of said, nothing felt generic. Nothing felt like a creator wrestler moment. Everything just was like, okay, that is very cool. A, you've got my interest. B, yeah, it's unique and it's presented differently, which is in the wrestling world is very hard to do because, as it's been said, there's pretty much nothing in wrestling that's never been done before. All you can do is try and make it unique to you. You put your spin on it, you present it, and that's how it comes across.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's Scottish wrestling as a whole for me. That's what, again, and like I said, the fan base, you put everything together, and it's lightning in a bottle.
100%.
But dude, sorry, I'm just trying to I'm just going all these because still think like the old school Kenny, like so I just took all the Kaylee Ray kind of thing, when like you sort of say just the names that have come out from up there.
Yeah, when you really get to like the facts and figures of who came from that scene, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I unfortunately had the displeasure of the ICW. I went to an ICW show in Leeds many years ago, and I think they fucking, as fans, I actually loved the show, but I remember hearing like they fucking hated it. They just did not like the Leeds, or they did not like the Leeds crowd, or something just didn't click on the night. I was just like, no, this was kind of. I remember loving that show, and I was kind of gutted that they didn't. So
that was the thing. It was like when they were running tours at that point, they were going to so many towns that it was like every show felt so different. So if one didn't feel the same as like, say, an absolute barnstormer in a Newcastle, say, but then you went to Leeds and it just wasn't the same. You would look back at it and that, where the show itself might have been fine, especially from a fan's perspective, but for them, they're looking at it going, that wasn't the same as the show the weekend before and the weekend after. So you have to weigh up your kind of, at the end of the day, it's a business decision, you know what I mean?
Oh no, definitely, yeah, no, I get it. Like I said, it just kind of, I was upset that they didn't enjoy it as much as me because it was an amazing show. But it's just you're part of that now. Like I said, you're going to Newcastle soon with ICW. Dude, yeah, you're getting like again, not just flog a dead horse, but we're like 16 months into your journey, and I just feel like you're ticking off boxes left, right, and centre. Working abroad, that's any countries that you would be like. I know a lot of people say like they want to wrestle Germany just because of the heritage kind of thing, the legacy for wrestling in Germany. But is there any countries where you've kind of got your passport ready to be like, right, I'm off?
So right now, as it stands, there's the big ones. There's your Japans, your Mexico. There's, like you say, Germany. I'm obviously trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in this. Not this scene because that would be Britain, but the general wrestling world. There seems to be a lot of stuff popping off in places like Italy, France, Poland. It's an obvious one. I'd love to go to Ireland to go wrestle with OTT. I really like the stuff that they're putting on just now. Very similar in a sense to ICW. I feel like I'm the type of wrestler that would fit in quite well in an OTT. beyond that, I'd really like to get stateside as well. Obviously, recently worked Big Gay Brunch, which was affiliated with GCW and through like AFA and Alley Catch, Dark Chic. But hey, never say never. These are the things that are on the horizon, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, dude, because obviously I spoke to HCC, and they were on about they got to go over to stateside.
Yes, work for Hoodslam. Was it?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Just because of the networking, it's like people will say, part of wrestling, a massive part of wrestling is it's not just what you can do, it's the networking, it's meeting the right people at the right time or being at the right show, and just somebody seeing you and be like, right, well,
that was fun enough. That's how I got kind of where I am right now. It was to give you a bit of a behind the curtain look into the career of myself. It was the first ever Source Wrestling. It was the last ever Source Wrestling show, which was affiliated to the school that I started with. The school was closing, so we're doing one last show. And a nice kind of full circle moment. I got to be the last ever graduate of that school. That was the school that produced my brother, who was the first ever student technically there. One of the first ever graduates who came through that iteration of the school in 2010. But that trained your Joe Coffeys, Mark Coffey, and Joe Hendry. Sorry, I had a mind blank there, thinking of the people who came through it. But this is what I'm saying. Like, you look at the caliber of talent that came from it. It was cool to be the last one to ever graduate from the school. Obviously, in a very different iteration. But at that show, the management from ISW, it came because the GPWA was merging all the students from that school. They very kindly took us into their arms, and let all of us have somewhere to train going forward. But through that, with the management being there, they it was kind of a surreal moment. I was the first half main, and of course, it's a bit of a, being the last ever show, it was a bit more open-ended, so we were allowed to go out into the people afterwards. With all my family and friends being there, I was just speaking to all of them, and I turned from a conversation with my family to Jack Jester, Scott Reed and Thomas Cairns, who were like, would you like to wrestle for £5 wrestling in 2 weeks? So to get my first booking, literally 2 weeks later, just off my performance that night, was pretty cool. But that's, like you're saying, with networking, and it was through that I spoke to Scott Cassidy, a man who promoted the shows in Paisley, where for Bop Wrestling, where I won my first ever title. It was meeting people at those shows who then got me bookings elsewhere, who then it was the kind of snowball effect in a sense, all from day dot with my first match. So I'm the biggest proponent of, I think the networking is the most important part of wrestling. If you're not, and don't get me wrong, people have their off days. I don't think you need to be don't need to be in character at all times, but you definitely need to be able to be pleasant to be around. Otherwise, it's the easiest thing in the world to be nice. You know what I mean? And if you're only doing it to get a booking, I don't think that's for the right reasons either. I think just be pleasant, just be somebody that is nice to be around, because then a promoter can look at you and go, oh, I had a laugh at that guy. Sure, I'll stick him on. Are you free? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not going to feel like you're not going to be out of place in that locker room kind of thing. So obviously, everybody wants to get a locker room where everybody's happy, where everybody kind of gets on, where everybody looks forward to working together, kind of thing.
Well, so, it's a classic thing as well. It's just like, is a promoter going to look at someone who, hey, they had a good match, but they showed up an hour before doors, they sat on their phone the entire time, didn't speak to anyone, and the moment the match was done, they went home? Or a guy who had a good match, but he came in, he was a good laugh to be around, he stuck around to the end of the show, came out afterwards, he came out for food, like anything, you know what I mean? I feel, I don't know if it's just me speaking from my personal opinion, but I can only imagine what you would rather have around.
No, I agree, dude. I second that, and I was kind of, it's just a life lesson, isn't it? Just be the kind of guy people want to be around. Just be nice.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, like you sort of said. it bears good results. And why wouldn't it? Like I said, why wouldn't you want to be around somebody who's just nice to be around? And if I was a promoter, I'd be like, yeah, come on, let's crack on. But yeah, fingers crossed. I think, like I said, the whole TNT thing, getting to meet people, just being you kind of thing. Obviously, an impression will have been made. And I think if people are looking for people, they'll be like,
that guy. Exactly.
I hope. I'm not talking about Joey Hayes. I'm talking about that guy there. So, dude, I've just clocked the time. I said I'd keep you for about an hour. We've just gone over. Mate, thank you so much. So I kind of got tongue-tied at various points during this chat because you just, like I said, I'm just, the whole Scottish wrestling scene thing, it still excites me. It still kind of gets me hyped. When I get excited, I start talking too fast and I lose track. So it's a good thing. It's a massive compliment for what you guys are doing up there. The fact that you can still, you get the fans excited, and we're excited to see what you do. I just think, everybody up there deserves a pat on the back. Next time you're at a show, don't do it because you look like a weirdo. But I was going to say, just go around and pat everybody on the back. Like, good job.
Well done.
Talking of future shows and everything like that, where can people hit you up on the socials and see what you're up to and what you're doing?
On socials, it's just my name. I got very lucky years ago when I managed to get all my social media handles to just be Fraser Girvan. No numbers, no nothing, just Fraser Girvan. On there, I'm constantly talking about upcoming stuff, but at the moment, if you keep a close eye, the main circle that I wrestle in is the ICW kind of bubble in between that. They're also the family-friendly product, Blockbuster Pro Wrestling. This weekend, we've got the Edinburgh Comic Con. We've got, if you look at the socials, we've got a bunch of ICW shows coming up. We've got Blockbuster, obviously, the weekend after Fear and Loathing as well. The big one, we've got Fear and Loathing, November 17th, back at the garage, which is, my match has just been announced against Arcade Violence. Other than that, I've got Combat League coming up north, which is at the very most northern point of Scotland, which I love doing. November 30th, I want to say. Other than that, I've got a few things in the works, but nothing I can publicly say at the moment. If you just keep a close eye on my socials, you will be well aware when they come up.
Well, I will do what I can do to try and share and like and hype and stuff as well. Obviously, we'll tag you in the posts when this get uploaded to let people know it's out now to watch. If you're not following Fraser, please do. Please tell me I got it right that time. I'm going to say, please follow Mr. No, I'm not even going to say it again. I'm not risking it. Please follow Mr. Girvan and, show support. Go to any shows that he is on near you. If he's not on a show near you, just if there's a show near you, go watch it. Support British wrestling. It's awesome. Dude, genuinely, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, I've really enjoyed my time here. Thank you very much.
Dude, thank you so much. And I always say at the end of the episode, I suck at ending episodes. I always talk too much. I end up waffling. So somebody gave me an idea last week. I'm going to use it as a sign off. I'm going to do a Ron Burgundy, have a sign off, stop talking. So, dude, thank you so much for talking to me. And remember, always work the left side. Goodbye.
Right.